The story begins with our nerd named Ryu, who is receiving praise from the headmaster for his field and volunteer work. But at the same time, he gets scolded for getting into a fight with delinquents from another school. After that, our insult-proof guy leaves the headmaster's office and tells his friends that he has to write apology letters, but he has avoided suspension. He says sorry for getting involved with bullies, but they tell him he doesn't need to apologize and that they would have run away if they were in his place. Ryu then tells them how he used to be bullied for being a transfer student from the countryside because his accent and habits made him stand out. But one day, an exchange student saved him. Ryu asked the secret of her confidence and strength, to which she told him that she believes in herself and always tries to see things clearly and stay fair. Ryu wanted to be like her, but before he could learn more, she moved away. Back in the present, he says her way of living became his goal, and he really wants to see her again, though he has no idea where she is now. Then, Ryu remembers the promise they made before she left that if she ever needed help, it would be his turn to save her. Suddenly, a magic circle appears under Ryu, and it surrounds him with a bright flash and raging winds. Everyone around him becomes scared, but then he gets teleported to another world and finds himself in a massive castle. He hears someone calling him the suitable one from behind, and when he turns around, he finds a man standing with two beautiful women by his side. The man invites him for coffee and apologies for summoning him to their world without any notice. At first Ryu thinks it's a joke, but then he notices two moons in the sky, which makes him realize that he is in fact in another world. The man then introduces himself as the director of the Intelligence Bureau of the human race, Dualzer, and the girls besides him as his aides named Amelia and Amelia. Ryu asks Dualzer why he summoned him there, to which the four-eyed director says that they need him to lend his powers to them. He further explains that right now, the world outside their window might look peaceful, but the truth is that it's something they have just recently achieved. He reveals that besides humans, there's another race called Inhumans that lives besides them. They are essentially monsters, and not so long ago, they ruled this world and oppressed humans, but 10 years ago, they launched a full-scale war against humanity led by the Dark Queen, Fleonel. Things were hard, but humanity managed to prevail, and after the war, the Inhumans were driven to the end of the world, and this world became peaceful for humans. Hearing this, Ryu asks why peace is still so fragile, and Dualzer explains that the key to their victory was the Holy Sword. He tells Ryu that the sword could take down 1,000 enemies with one swing, cleave mountains, and split seas, and it granted godly power to its user. However, at the end of the war, the sword was used to seal the Dark Queen Fleonel, and the sword user was defeated. He reveals that the sword is still with the sealed Dark Queen and is in the hands of the last Inhumans, but no one else can touch it unless a suitable one appears. And if the suitable one shows up among the Inhumans, the Dark Queen will be revived, and the sword will remain in their hands, which will end humanity's peace. Hearing this, Ryu's last two brain cells leave the chat, and he asks why they need him as someone suitable. Dualzer confirms that they wouldn't have asked Ryu if they already had someone suitable. He then takes Ryu outside and explains that they will be riding an aircraft, and once their mission is done, they will return him to his world. Amelia then tells him that Ryu will be rewarded with a lot of money and good food, and anything else he asks for. Amelia also tells Ryu that she will do whatever he asks for, and then she holds his hands and begs him. Seeing the girls pleading to him, our certified single guy agrees to help them, and says that he won't sit still just because he's in another world. Hearing this, Amelia gets so excited and thanks him. After that, they take off and land on top of a mountain near the monster city. Then they show Ryu the shrine of the Dark Queen Fleonel, which is sealed and is located near the settlement of the Inhumans. They give him a pair of binoculars to look through the city and see what he's getting into. Through the binoculars, Ryu sees many monsters and the aura of the Dark Queen Fleonel. Ryu asks Dualzer if they really have to go through the city, but Dualzer assures him they won't because they've already gathered their soldiers. He also tells Ryu that although Amelia and Amelia are two of the biggest players in their army. Hearing this, Amelia blushes, while Amelia keeps her stern expression. They assure Ryu that they won't let any danger come near him, which makes him feel more at ease. After that, Dualzer orders his soldiers to begin the attack on the Inhuman city with fire magic. As the attack begins, the monsters are caught off guard while the humans keep on attacking, which makes the monsters run in panic. Ryu stands there like he is auditioning to be a statue and watches the chaos silently. Meanwhile, the humans start taking valuable items from the monsters. Just then, Ryu spots a monster carrying a baby. When the monster sees Ryu, he draws his sword and warns him to stay away and not harm the child. The monster looks furious and asks if the war wasn't enough, and reveals that the humans took their women and children, and wonders what else the humans want from them. Before the monster can say more, Amelia appears and strikes him. It shocks Ryu while the monster shouts and asks how cold-blooded the humans can be. In the blink of an eye, Amelia and Amelia take down the monster and everyone around him, which leaves Ryu in shock as he looks at the dead bodies everywhere. Amelia tells Ryu he should not space out, even if they will protect him anyway. Just then, Dualzer walks up to them and tells the ladies not to slay too many monsters because they still have some use for them. After that, they decide to head for their goal, which is the sealed Dark Queen and the Holy Sword. They move to where the queen is, and Ryu sees her with a sword stuck right in her chest. Dualzer tells him to remove the sword and says it should not be too hard. Ryu moves closer and tries to pull it out. At first, it doesn't work, but when he uses more strength, he finally pulls it out, and it causes a loud thunder sound inside the cave. Seeing this, Dualzer quickly orders the army to get ready because they are about to see the Dark Queen Fleonel. Suddenly, a huge force bursts from the cave and makes it feel like it is going to collapse. After that, Fleonel's voice comes from the cave, and she says that the day her seal breaks has finally come. Then she says everyone should fear and admire her and proudly calls herself Fleonel the Dark Queen. Everyone just stares at her as she walks out of the cave and gives a smug smile. Then she looks at all the humans with disgust and says it is the worst way to wake up, but she decides it's fine as a warm-up. After that, she gathers her strength and tries to cast a huge spell to destroy everyone, but it was just crickets and silence. She gets confused, but then she realizes that she cannot use her powers. She gets mad when she sees that she is in childlike form and yells that normally she has a big, strong form. Ryu looks at her and stands up from the ground with the holy sword in his hand. Fleonel gasps when she sees Ryu because she can feel her powers inside the holy sword. She rushes at him and orders him to give her powers back, but when she touches the sword, she gets thrown back hard onto the ground. Fleonel remembers that if someone is not a suitable one, they cannot touch the holy sword. She looks at Ryu again and feels like she knows him, but brushes it off as a coincidence. Ryu also thinks she looks like his old exchange student friend, but he tells himself it is impossible since he is in another world, and his friend was not an evil queen. Just then, Dualzer walks over to Fleonel and steps on her head, then says that it is funny that the holy sword drained all her power and turned her into a little girl. He laughs again and says this makes it easier for them to finish her off. After that, they decide to do a public execution of the Dark Queen Fleonel in the Monster City. Dualzer then says to Fleonel that he is only letting her live to make her witness this sight. Just then, one of the monsters speaks up sadly and says they now accept that they lost the great war they fought for their survival and dignity. Fleonel feels really bad and apologizes to her people for failing them even after her resurrection. The monsters shout out and say that it is hard to believe that the little girl in front of them is really the great Fleonel, and say that the humans are just trying to fool them. But Dualzer is not surprised because he expected this reaction. However, Fleonel gets frustrated and decides to prove her identity. Then she lifts her skirt up and shows them a unique symbol on her body. Seeing this, the monsters recognize the sign as the Regalia of Arcana that only Fleonel can have and finally believe that she is the real Fleonel. But it makes them sad that she is going to be executed. Just then, Dualzer grabs her by the hair and makes her kneel on the ground while Emilia raises the dagger to end her. However, something surprising happens, and Ryu walks up to Dualzer and says that Fleonel has already lost her powers and the Great War is over, so they don't need to assassinate her. He says that Flerken is the pride of the Inhumans, and if they eliminate someone so important, it might cause a bad reaction and lead to revenge. Dualzer tells him that defeating her would be the final blow to destroy the monsters. Hearing this, Ryu starts to get angry and asks him if the Inhumans are really just brutal and sly monsters. This confuses Dualzer, and he silently looks at Ryu. However, Ryu doesn't stop there and continues telling Dualzer that he feels like he is being dragged into something terrible. But Dualzer cuts him off and says that Ryu is a human from another world, so he cannot understand the pain and burdens of the humans of this world. He tells him that justice is on their side, to which Ryu realizes that he truly knows nothing about this world. So Bro decides to leave his brain on autopilot and not think too deeply about it. Just then, Fleonel calls the humans foolish and says that it was the humans who forced monsters into the Great War and ruined the peaceful life between all species. She reveals that they destroyed their lands and loved ones and even followed them to the ends of the world. Hearing this, Dualzer remains unbothered and still insists on executing her. Fleonel then turns to Ryu and calls him the envoy of the Holy Sword. She says that she does not want to bow to a user of the Holy Sword who once turned her into stone. But when she looks at Riz's eyes, she notices that they are different. She says that his eyes do not see monsters as dirt or cattle, so she realized he must not be from their world. She asks him to look around and think carefully about what he sees and what is right. After that, she bows her head to him. Just then, there is an unexpected blast that surprises everyone. Ryu runs over and breaks the chains that are tying her and sets her free, thinking that she looks and talks like his old friend. When the humans see that Fleonel is free, they launch an attack against her and Ryu. But Ryu jumps in like a thrifted action hero and uses the power of the Holy Sword to defeat them all at once and knocks them hard to the ground. Seeing this, Dualzer asks Ryu what he thinks he is doing, but Ryu carries Fleonel in his arms and tells Dualzer that he is joining the Inhumans because he cannot see the humans as just. Hearing this, Dualzer immediately orders his armies to end all the humans who are siding with monsters and says that one person is not difficult to handle even if he is wielding a holy sword. Just then, one soldier mocks Ryu and says that he is a fool for siding with beasts. Meanwhile, the other human soldiers attack Ryu, but he crushes them like ants and beats them down with ease. They keep trying to attack him again and again, but Ryu is too strong and beats them all into a pulp. Ryu finishes dealing with the soldiers and then tells Dualzer that the Holy Sword originally belonged to him and now it's teaching him how to fight. Hearing this, Dualzer sends Emilia and Emilia to attack Ryu together. They come at him and Emilia says she is disappointed because she thought they got along well. Then she strikes at him, but Ryu easily blocks her attack with his sword. Just then, Emilia tries a surprise attack from the side, but Ryu dodges it swiftly. Both of them attack him together once again, but Ryu swings his sword and slashes Emilia's shoulder. She gets back towards Emilia, and both of them launch another attack, but Ryu throws them away like dirty laundry with just one swing of his sword. The two ladies get back to Dualzer and apologize to him for their failure to bring Ryu down. However, Dualzer tells them they fought well against the Holy Sword and tells them that he has finished setting up his techniques. After that, Dualzer charges at Ryu and traps him inside a fire barrier. At first, Ryu doesn't understand how dangerous the fire is and calls Dualzer a fool for using attack magic head-on instead of using it for defense. But soon Ryu realizes that he cannot last long in the flames and asks Dualzer about the technique because he doesn't understand the magic of this world. Meanwhile, Fleonel is hiding behind a rock and gets shocked when she hears that Ryu is actually from another world. Hearing this, Ryu tells Fleonel to do something about the fire barrier since she is the Dark Queen. However, she says that if he wants her help, he must give her access to the Holy Sword's power. Just then, an idea comes to Fleonel, and she jumps at Ryu and grabs his free hand tightly. It surprises Ryu, and he asks what she is doing, but Fleonel holds on even tighter and tells him that while she cannot touch the Holy Sword directly, she can draw its power through him. Ryu looks at her like she has lost her mind, but suddenly something starts to happen and Fleonel regains her powers. Her body grows large and powerful, which shocks everyone and fills the humans with fear. Fleonel laughs wickedly and declares again that she is Fleonel, the Dark Queen. Seeing this, Dualzer says they must end everything quickly before it is too late and activates a magic spell. However, Fleonel calls him weak and joins Ryu's hand to combine her power with the Holy Sword and decides to finish everything in one single attack. They perform the fourth forbidden magic and crush the human soldiers in one devastating blow. Once the battle is over, Fleonel thanks Ryu, but Ryu smiles and tells her that she saved him too, so they are even. Fleonel then asks what his next plan is, to which Ryu laughs and says he has no plan because he already defeated the only person who knew how to send him back to his original world. Ryu then asks her about her plans and Fleonel says that the humans have taken everything from the Inhumans and that nothing will ever change as long as humanity rules this world. She says she will rise again and lead the Inhumans to get back what belongs to them. Fleonel then asks Ryu to become their pillar of strength and says that during the battle she confirmed that together they are strong enough to face the humans. She admits that she feels guilty for dragging someone from another world into their fight. However, Ryu laughs and says that he already chose the Inhumans during the battle and he will stand by his choice. Hearing this, Fleonel gets so happy that she hugs him tightly and thanks him. The hug makes Ryu remember his long-lost friend who looked and spoke just like her. He remembers when his friend hugged him when she left and said it would be his turn to save her one day. Ryu lifts Fleonel up in joy, and together they decide to move forward and strike back at Dualzer and the rest of humanity. The scene shifts to Dualzer standing on a mountain near the monster city. Emilia says that they are surrounded by enemies from both sides and all of their soldiers have already gone. Standing, Dualzer remains silent and uses binoculars to observe what's happening there. Then he says that Ryu is a traitor who betrayed humans and joined the Inhumans in a revolt that defeated humans. He admits that he expected this and tells the ladies that it's time for the Second Great War, and this time they'll completely annihilate the Inhumans. Scene shifts to the Inhumans world, also called the Alternate World. There was once a great war in which humans took everything from defeated Inhumans. Our hero Ryu is summoned to this strange world, and after getting the power of the Holy Sword, he decides to fight alongside the Inhumans and the Dark Queen Fleonel. Back to the present, Ryu wakes up and loses his zero-chill personality when he sees that Fleonel is sleeping on his bed. He asks why she's there, and she explains that it's her habit to sleep anywhere when she gets drunk and admits that she got a bit carried away during their celebration last night. Hearing this, Ryu tells her it's a risky habit and urges her to get up before anyone notices. Just then, someone rushes in and shouts that there's an emergency and they need to leave immediately. Once outside, Ryu is surprised to see a large hologram television in their world. Fleonel explains that the man on the screen is humanity's ruler, Gustav. She tells him that the only way the Inhumans can have a future is by defeating him. Just then, Ryu spots Dualzer standing behind the Emperor, and it shocks him that he is still alive even after getting hit by his arcana. Then he shifts his attention to Emperor Gustav, who is giving a speech. The Emperor calls the Inhumans inferior and blames them for reviving their Dark Queen and claims that they've betrayed humanity. He says that this world belongs to humans, and they should not allow evil Inhumans to build their settlement in their world, and announces a war to wipe out all Inhumans. Fleonel and Ryu get furious when they hear that humans are preparing for war. Gustav declares this war of annihilation as a great crusade to purify their world. Hearing this, the human soldiers raise their hands in unison, showing themselves ready for the conflict. Seeing this, Ryu thinks that he has already sided with the Inhumans and feels no regret for his decision. Just then, one of the Inhumans asks Fleonel and Ryu if they can actually win because their main opponent is the absolute ruler of the world. Fleonel reassures them that they don't need to fear because they already have a plan. She explains that it will take time for the humans to prepare for war, especially since they've been at peace for 10 years. She assures them that they'll also prepare in the meantime. Ryu then remembers that Fleonel was trying to contact someone the day before and asks her who it was. She reveals that after the last Great War, many soldiers went into hiding and they are waiting for a chance to come back. She tells him that she reached out to some of those and they would be arriving soon. Suddenly, a giant creature suddenly appears in their compound and attacks them, but Ryu immediately deflects it with his sword and launches a counterattack. The creature dodges his first strike, but fails to avoid the second attack and loses its aura points like Amber Heard's credibility. Ryu puts his sword on its neck and asks the creature who it is and whether it's an assassin sent by the humans. Hearing this, the creature apologizes for its impoliteness and introduces itself as Liet Bloodfield, a bestial. Then he shakes hands with Ryu and praises him for protecting their queen. After that, he turns to Fleonel and tells her that he has waited for her revival along with his 1,000 claws and fangs. Hearing this, Fleonel and Ryu look out the window and see that her people are cheering her name. Some are shocked by her appearance because they didn't expect her to look like a child. Liet admits that he was doubtful when she contacted him, but now he has realized that she really looks like a child and remarks that she reminds him of his daughter. Then he lifts her up, to which Fleonel angrily tells him not to treat her like a child. Seeing this, Ryu thinks that it looks like a grandfather adoring his granddaughter. After that, Fleonel tells Liet that joining him and the other strongest inhuman armies is reassuring, but they can't waste time. Just then, they see human soldiers marching toward them, and it surprises them because they thought the humans would need more time to prepare. However, they note that these soldiers are from the Imperial Coalition, which is a private army of 30,000 soldiers named Bilget Company, that controls the colonies and is responsible for the Inhumans' oppression. Fleonel tells Ryu that the colony lords likely want to avoid an all-out war of annihilation and only want to behead her to end the root of their problems. Hearing this, Liet asks Fleonel what they should do and mentions the clear difference in military power and suggests they should try to avoid battle. However, Ryu interrupts him and asks if they're challenging all of humanity, then why would they back down because of 30,000 soldiers? With that, they prepare to face the army as a warm-up for the big war. In the evening, they head towards the former great trade city of Rio al Carla. It was once a town built on a great river that allowed it to thrive through imports and exports, but the effects of the last great war had turned the city into a ghost town. Presently, both armies are facing each other in this city. The Inhuman army has 1,000 soldiers, while the human private army consists of 3,000. Ryu is surprised by the Sai and asks Fleonel about her plan, to which she tells him that the key to bridging the gap between their forces lies in his holy sword and her arcana. She further explains that her ultimate fire technique and the fourth forbidden technique can take down around 3,000 people at once. However, she warns him not to be too confident because she can only use her arcana 3 times a day, so she must use it wisely. With that, they prepare for battle and Fleonel instructs her army to make the stage for their supreme blow, and for that, she borrows all their strength. Ryu is not sure if everything will go well, but Fleonel notes his reaction and shouts at him to stop sulking, as they've already prepared for battle. Liet notices Ryu's hesitation and places a hand on his shoulder, telling him to relax while reminding Ryu that Fleonel has overcome great adversity many times before. Liet also explains that Fleonel's true strength lies in her tactical abilities, and the human soldiers are aware of that, so that's why they only sent humans to the battlefront. He reveals that humans knew that Fleonel would do something unpredictable if they used inhuman slaves. He assures Ryu that soon he'll understand why Fleonel is feared As both armies gather for war, the humans call out to the Inhumans and tell them to hand over Fleonel and the Holy Sword Envoy. They offer that in return they will spare the other Inhumans, but the Inhumans refuse. Hearing this, Fleonel climbs to the top of a building and calls out to the humans and tells them that if they want her head, they'll have to take it themselves. The human commander is annoyed by her response because he wanted to capture the Inhumans alive and enslave them, but now he decides not to spare anyone. Just then, Fleonel commands her army to attack and the war begins. Ryu looks around and is amazed at how war works in this world. Fleonel tells him that everything relies on techniques and explains that cannoneers boost destructive power and the ability to manipulate the terrain. She adds that petty tricks are meaningless in the face of military-grade techniques and says that a continuous attack will eventually bring down even the strongest of barriers. She tells him that this is the reason armies often create battle lines to gather firepower and leave the rest for might and brawn to clash. After that, she gets close to him and says that she doesn't really like these methods, so she has made her own ways of fighting wars. Then she grabs Ryu's hands to derive strength from him and regains her full size. After that, she uses the 6th forbidden technique on the human army, which causes a massive impact on their barriers. The commander of the human army is shocked by the technique, but one of his men points out that Fleonel has used one of her arcana and she is left with only 2 more uses for the day. The commander realizes that Fleonel is using her arcana defensively and that she doesn't have an offensive arcana powerful enough to wipe out 30,000 soldiers, which eases his mind a bit. He then tells his soldiers that if they use close quarters combat, they can tear through Fleonel's defensive technique and win the war, and with that they begin the attack. Just then Liet charges at the human soldiers and sends them packing like a rejected audition. Seeing this, the human soldiers wonder who he is. Liet looks at their shocked faces and says that he and the other survivors of the last Great War have trained diligently over the past 10 years, so no-name NPCs like them can't harm them anymore. The commander observes Liet and says that he may have high physical abilities, but he can't possibly win against their numbers, and then commands his troops to surround Liet from both sides and orders his army to chase them. Seeing this, the human commander realizes that the Inhumans are hiding in the city and mentions that it's a standard strategy to take up positions in a cramped area to reduce the number they have to face at once. He laughs and says that their strategy won't work because the area is too wide and the buildings are too cramped for the Inhumans to escape. He calls the Inhumans mere beasts and says that they can just overpower them with their numbers. He is sure that they will take Fleonel's head and capture the envoy of the Holy Sword. He looks at Ryu and Fleonel, who are standing on top of a building, and wonders why Fleonel hasn't used her last 2 arcanas and thinks maybe she's saving them. He is also curious why Ryu hasn't moved, but he is sure that they can beat the envoy of the sword with their numbers. Just then, something clicks in his mind, and he thinks maybe Fleonel can't use her arcana one after the other. He wonders why she hasn't already used it, especially after falling into such danger. Then he orders his army to attack Inhumans and bring him the heads of the Dark Queen and the envoy of the Holy Sword. Seeing this, Fleonel tells her army to move left and right and prepare to attack from both sides. The human commander gets shocked when he sees that the troops are splitting, so he quickly tells his army to stop. Just then he realizes that he just got pranked because the bridge is broken and the river is right in front of them, so there is no path ahead. His soldiers start to panic, and he looks left and right and sees the Inhumans lining up along the narrow river path. He panics when he realizes that they can only move forward, but going forward means facing the Inhumans, and defeating them all won't be easy. Just then, something confuses him, and he wonders why there's a river here at all. That's when he looks up and sees the Dark Queen standing on top of a clock tower, and he realizes that the tower is built right inside the river. Suddenly, everything makes sense, and he shouts for his troops to retreat, but it's already too late, like your academic comeback. The Dark Queen then tells Ryu that it's his turn, and he jumps from the clock tower right in front of the human soldiers. When the soldiers see that the envoy of the sword is swinging his sword and coming towards them, they start running in panic. But soon they realize that they are trapped from all sides. Going forward means stepping into the river, while moving back will lead them to rubble. Seeing this, Fleonel announces that the entrapment is complete, and she jumps from the clock tower and stands beside Ryu. Then she says it was hard to deal with 30,000 soldiers by using arcana carelessly. But now that all the soldiers are gathered in one place and every escape route is blocked, it is much easier to handle them. Seeing this, the human commander and his army are shocked and don't understand how just 1,000 Inhumans managed to trap 30,000 of them. Their last brain cell leaves their body when they see that the Dark Queen and the envoy of the Holy Sword are heading straight towards them. Meanwhile, Fleonel tells Ryu that the stage is set, and then she uses the 4th forbidden technique, which is called the Bang Radiance of Destruction. It is a power that can destroy existence itself, and it wipes out half the human army in one strike. The remaining soldiers get terrified when they note that even their boss is no more. Seeing this, Fleonel threatens that she still has one more use of her arcana left, and tells them they can either surrender or die for nothing. Hearing this, Ryu's jaw almost drops on the floor, and he wonders how she can be so bold because he knows she has already used all her arcana. He remembers that she used one before the battle to rebuild the entire battlefield. She built the tower in the river and constructed the roads without bypasses, and without these, there wouldn't even be a city here. But there is no way the humans can know that, so her words hit them hard, and they all place their hands on their heads and think that the battle is over. Ryu looks at the human army and thinks that they began the war with more power, but now they are completely trapped and defeated and at the mercy of the Dark Queen. Just then, Fleonel returns to her smaller form and gives Ryu a proud knuckle tap, and the Inhumans cheer and jump in victory. Fleonel smiles and says to Ryu that he looked so serious the whole time, but she knows that he now understands what she said earlier. She says that as long as they fight together, they will always win no matter how powerful their enemies are. Back in the human capital, the news of the battle reaches the Emperor, and he realizes that even though they have a private army, they can't take the Inhumans lightly. But Dualzer tells him not to worry and says that once the super heavy strike cannon Artralia is finished, the Inhumans will finally understand the huge gap between humans and beasts. 10 days after Fleonel's revival, Inhumans from many different lands begin to gather, and the city slowly starts to feel more like a large camp. Ryu is surprised to see so many different kinds of species among them because he always thought Inhumans were just beasts. While he's looking around, a woman appears like a sudden plot twist and picks him up using one of her many tentacles. Ryu gets scared because he didn't notice her walking up. Seeing this, she tells him he doesn't know anything about their world, and it looks like she'll have to teach him everything from the beginning. Her name is Gloria, and she is an Arborian Dryad, which is one of the rarest species, and she is also Fleonel's right hand. Just then, Fleonel walks up with lunch and asks Ryu to eat together, but she's surprised to see him talking with Gloria. She gets a little angry but hides it well, and tells them it's time to move on to the next phase of their plan. They head to the General Staff Office, where Liet and some soldiers are waiting. Fleonel stands in front of everyone and begins to speak. She tells them that they've only been fighting using scattered guerrilla tactics, and these methods can help them avoid big battles. But this kind of war only lets the strong survive. She says that it's not a way to win completely, and if they want a real victory, they need to take control of a proper stronghold. Fleonel explains that a stronghold will give them supply routes, places to make weapons, and open space to train soldiers properly. She says once they have a base like that, they'll finally be able to fight the full power of the human army. After that, she tells them the object is already chosen. Then Fleonel points at a large map and shows them a place surrounded by advanced tech cannons, high walls, and layered tech barriers that make it very hard to enter. The place is called Fortress City Coldblood, and it used to be a main base for the human army during the war. After the meeting, they all head toward the fortress right away, and when they get there, Ryu is shocked to see that the place is massive. Liet walks beside him and explains that Coldblood was once an important place for all Inhumans. But after the humans captured it, they rebuilt the whole city and forced the Inhuman citizens into slavery and threw them into internment camps. Liet reveals that even his daughter, Liana, was taken and made a prisoner. Ryu notices the pain in Liet's voice and the anger in his eyes. Liet says that today is finally the day they will take back the city. Fleonel agrees and says the fortress is still fully equipped and explains that in the past, people said it couldn't be conquered. But after the war ended, the human army left and the Imperial Coalition claimed it for themselves without fighting. Ryu stares at the city and asks Fleonel if taking it back would really free all the captured Inhumans. Then he asks about their plan and Fleonel says the human side is still weak and they haven't recovered from the last battle, where they lost 30,000 soldiers. She says that this time, the Inhumans will also have a bigger army and can overwhelm them with numbers. After that, they begin their strategy and Fleonel builds a secret underground tunnel that leads into the city. She says this will confuse the humans and make them think the attack is coming from somewhere else. She says even though they have fewer fighters, they might be able to slip in and win, and the best case would be if the humans just surrendered and handed over the fortress. Ryu looks up at the enormous gates and asks if surrender is even possible. Hearing this, Fleonel says that she also doesn't believe they will surrender and says it might be a trap. She tells him that they will send in their strongest fighters, Liet and the Sage Tree Gloria. Ryu frowns when he hears that name and asks if that fancy tree girl is really coming. He doesn't like her energy and says something about her feeling off. As they go deeper into the city, they sense a horrible smell in the air. Ryu asks if they're near an internment camp, but as they move forward, the sight becomes worse. Ryu sees human skulls and piles of rotting corpses and even bodies hanging from ropes. He calls out to Liet in shock, but Liet is stunned too, and he tells Ryu that these were once prisoners and Inhumans like them, who were worked to death as slaves. They keep walking, but the city is empty, and no one is left alive in this area. Seeing this, Liet grows more and more frustrated and asks if there are any survivors at all. He begins to fear that his daughter Liana might already be dead. Just as they are about to move forward, they hear voices in the distance. They hear one person say that he wants the prisoners to do more work, but since there are too many of them, they need to figure out how to use the useless ones. He says he will use some of them to create their paradise and the others will be used as shields. The group realizes the voices are coming from enemy soldiers talking about the captured Inhumans. They decide to move in closer, and they finally see the remaining prisoners and Liet sees his daughter, Liana, among them. The enemy commander, who looks like a peeled potato, says that because of what happened a few days ago, his company lost 30,000 soldiers and took serious damage. And now their reputation is under threat, so if they lose this city too, it will ruin them. The person who is talking is the Imperial Coalition's co-representative director, and his name is Bob. Bob says they still have something important and orders the prisoners to take down the Dark Queen and her allies. However, the prisoners stand frozen and don't move, which makes the commander furious and he yells at them again, but they still stay still. Suddenly, one of the prisoners steps forward and says that they could never harm their comrades, especially when those comrades came to save them. Hearing this, the commander shoots him dead on the spot with an explosion. Fleonel and the others get furious to see this, while the commander shouts again and orders the prisoners to finish them. This time, some of the prisoners give in and charge forward to attack. Liana runs straight toward her father and asks him to forgive her, and then she pulls out a knife and tries to stab him, but Liet dodges the attack. Just then, another prisoner steps forward and also says it's wrong to attack their own people, and the commander shoots him too. Seeing this, Ryu gets angry and he wants to rush in to attack, but someone tells him not to, and he realizes that it's too far and he wouldn't make it in time. Ryu then calls out to Fleonel to take some step, but Gloria warns Fleonel not to move yet. Liet remains calm and tells Ryu that it hurts because when they tried to save the prisoners earlier, they only made their suffering worse. Hearing this, Ryu asks if they're really supposed to leave the prisoners behind again. Just then, Liana calls Liet, which makes the commander laugh, and he calls her a monster's daughter. He says that in the prison, they ran all kinds of tests on how to eliminate Inhumans, and the most interesting results came when family members were forced to fight each other. Then he orders Liana to finish off Liet. Hearing this, Liet gets furious, but the commander says he's not patient enough to wait, and then he threatens to end Liana himself if she doesn't act. Liana charges at her dad and stabs him with a knife, and then she begs him to pretend to collapse and say that it's the only way to keep him alive. Liet agrees and falls to his knees and pretends to be hurt badly. Seeing this, the commander thinks that he never believed the weak prisoners could beat him anyway. He says it was his plan to do this before Fleonel could act, and then he activates the collars around everyone's necks. This time, every prisoner is affected, and they all scream in pain. He tells them that it's a burst-type weapon and a gamma bomb that is set off at close range and no barrier would be able to stop it. He says that they'll all be blown to pieces. Hearing this, Ryu trembles with fury and finally understands that the commander planned to finish off everyone from the start. Just then, Gloria finishes her analysis and gives Fleonel the signal to move. Fleonel calls Ryu and grabs his hands, and she transforms into her full, large magical form. She apologizes to everyone for making them wait. Then she unleashes her third forbidden spell, known as Vast Imperative Nullification with Unbiased Eyes. The technique wipes out everyone's pain and destroys all the explosive collars at once. Liana runs to her dad and Liet hugs her tightly. Seeing this, the commander gets shocked because he never expected anyone to break the collars without a code. But he doesn't know it was actually Gloria who cracked the collar codes. Gloria looks at everyone and thanks the people who were hurt earlier because they were caught in the first explosion. She says that due to that, she was able to gather the data she needed and explains that she merged with the plants around her with a skill called Arborean Dryad. She's proud of that power because she remembers that due to the fear of their power, humans wiped out almost all Arboreans. She thinks that nothing has changed because, just like in the last Great War, humans use and abuse other species for their own gain. Now, everyone turns to the commander and declares that they are now pointing the fangs of rebellion straight at his arrogant throat. The commander shouts back at them and says there's nothing wrong with their so-called convenience because Inhumans only live thanks to human kindness. Fat Dude has already cooked up another plan and he releases a creature and then orders it to crush them. He says this place used to be a military base and the creature has been stored here ever since they bought the land. He calls it a combat mecha creature and says it will turn them into piles of broken bodies. Then the creature is released and starts smashing everything in sight. The commander laughs loudly and says that humans are the supreme rulers of the world and tells them that if they want to survive, they should submit and become slaves, and if they don't, they will be wiped out. Liet and his daughter are the closest to the creature, and it's charging straight at them, but Liet is badly hurt and he can't stand up. Ryu sees this and quickly rushes to them to protect them. Just as the creature swings its blade, Ryu dodges in time and stands in front of the commander. Then he asks him why he plays with people's lives and what makes him think he's better than others. Then asks if that's really what their world has become and if that's what humans really are. Just then, the creature tries to attack him from behind, but Ryu slashes the creature with his sword and destroys it faster than your GPA drops. Seeing this, the commander gets scared and can't believe that the creature was beaten so easily. He realizes it's time to run and orders his men to retreat. But it's already too late because Ryu has no plans to let anyone escape. He grabs Fleonel's hand, and together they unleash the fourth forbidden technique, called the Bang Radiance Destruction. The power burns down the entire building, and then they walk toward where the commander has fallen. As they get closer, the commander screams at them and tells them to know their place and calls them an invasive species. But before he can say anything more, Ryu and Fleonel strike him with a final powerful blow and finish him for good. Once the battle ends and they return to their city, Fleonel stands on the top of a tall building and calls out to everyone. She tells them they have reclaimed Coldblood and today is a day of celebration. Hearing this, the crowd bursts into cheers and Fleonel says this war is different from the Great War of the past. She says that they sharpened their claws and fangs for 10 years, and now with the envoy of the Holy Sword on their side as well, they will take back their lost freedom and pride. The crowd erupts with joy again, and Ryu watches from above and thinks everyone has wild energy. Then he notices that Fleonel is using a machine while speaking. He realizes it's not just for the people here, and it's broadcasting to the other humans too, showing them how everything has changed. Fleonel explains to Ryu that retaking Qud has always been the greatest wish of the Inhumans. She continues her speech to the people, saying that now that the Imperial Coalition is gone, they've reached a turning point in their fight. Their forces have grown stronger, and they're now one step closer to defeating the humans. The crowd cheers loudly and shouts that they trust Fleonel-sama. But then, a sudden voice comes and everyone freezes when they see that it's Deedhauser spawned behind them like a bot in PUBG. Ryu doesn't understand how he got there, but Gloria quickly explains that a strong technique must have teleported him in. Deedhauser, who was once Dualzer, says that even though he reached out to the armies, they still got wiped out. But he doesn't care because Coldblood and the Imperial Coalition mean nothing to them now. He says in a mysterious tone that monsters can never defeat humans. Just then, Ryu tells Fleonel something feels wrong, and she agrees and they go to the top of the building and look out over the land. Fleonel asks him what he sees, and he replies that it's just wasteland for the next 100 kilometers. Fleonel then tries to use her Arcana and the sixth forbidden technique of reflection. But it doesn't work, and her Arcana can't reflect what's coming. Then Deedhauser continues speaking and reveals that the Super Heavy Strike Cannon Atralia is now complete and it can hit targets anywhere on the continent. He says that invasive species like Inhumans won't be allowed to exist anymore, and they'll crawl to the ends of the earth and be wiped out. Then he disappears. Suddenly, Fleonel starts laughing and says that the entire continent is within range of Atralia, which means they just need to seize the Super Heavy Strike Cannon. Meanwhile, back in the human world, Amelia is watching a video. She asks Amelia if she looked cool in the footage, but Amelia tells her she didn't even appear in the video, which surprises her. Deedhauser then tells them to prepare for war. But the two girls turn to look at him again, and Emilia tells him not to underestimate Dark Queen Fleonel and the envoy of the Holy Sword. Emilia says she thinks their place will become a battlefield soon. She asks if he thinks the Inhumans will be able to dodge Atralia's line of fire. Then she smiles and says at least they'll get to see the envoy of the Holy Sword again. Emilia doesn't understand why she seems so happy. Emilia then tells Deedhauser that maybe it's time to make peace with Ryu. She says Ryu answered their call when they summoned him, so he must be a good person. She thinks he only sided with Fleonel because she tricked him. She's about to say more, but Deedhauser cuts her off. He says Ryu is now their enemy and that he chose to become an enemy of humanity. He tells them not to bother capturing him and just destroy him completely. Emilia suddenly bursts into tears, which shocks Emilia. She says maybe Ryu turned against them because they didn't tell Ryu everything about the Inhumans or their world properly. But before she can finish, Deedhauser interrupts and says he didn't say anything wrong. He goes on and says that as long as Inhumans exist, their world will stay barren and broken and need fixing. Scene shifts to a village in the End of Lands where some Inhumans talk about the return of the Dark Queen Fleonel and say that her revival will bring them freedom. Back in Fleonel's city, she explains to her army that 4 days after the attack, they've finally assessed all the damage and now understand the full scale of the supercannon Atralia. She tells them it has a range of 3,000 kilometers and fires at an initial speed of over 12 kilometers per second. She says it's way bigger and more powerful than their current Mega Technism battery. Everyone is stunned. Ryu asks if it's a machine because his empty head doesn't really get it. Fleonel explains that techniques aren't just used for fighting, and they let people create huge energy effects or strange phenomena out of thin air, and the alternate world depends on these techniques. She goes on and says that using a technique requires passing an exam. When someone uses a technique with the correct prime field exam, they get the best results and power. But it's really hard to control and puts a huge strain on the user. So for safer and easier use, people started making large techniques for commercial use instead. She says that it refers to something like the combat mecha creature, and the individuals who cannot generate enough energy to use techniques on their own. They make use of tech-anisms to assist them. Now Ryu gets it, but he's still shocked that the cannon's range is really 3,000 kilometers. Gloria adds that the claim about the entire continent being within range isn't a bluff, and the shape of the cannon looks unusual and mysterious, more like a railgun. Hearing this, Fleonel says that the machine is a non-standard superweapon, and if they can take it, it will be like having the humans by the throat. Then she announces that they will acquire the super heavy strike cannon Atralia. Fleonel tells the army that Atralia is built on an important frontline base for the humans, and it has tight security. She explains that the Imperial Coalition's soldiers can't compare to the humans' regular army, which includes creatures and other advanced technologies. Liet speaks up and says he expects the battle to be fierce, but he believes it will be a milestone in their fight back. He then says that fighting against inferior soldiers will only dull their strength, and Fleonel agrees with him. She assures him that they have their own technology, like the light combat mecha and light creature developed by Noon, the third eye Oculartnet Atralian, and the engineering core. She calls the machine Dai Noza. Gloria looks at the machine and says that compared to the humans' combat mecha, it doesn't look very reliable because its cockpit is exposed. Hearing this, Fleonel says that it's already too much, as all they have are brittle scraps of broken technology. Liet says that they can make a lot more of them with their low material cost. He also mentions that they are connected to his workshop in real time, so they can quickly gather combat data and improve. But then he asks why his daughter is operating the machine, to which Fleonel says that Lyanna volunteered and she is the best person to control it. Lyanna tells her dad that while they were in the internment camp, prisoners were responsible for using dangerous machines, and if they made a mistake, they could die. She reveals that she had to memorize everything to use them perfectly. Hearing this, Liet's anger unlocks like a secret character, and he shouts that they should find the person who made his daughter do this. Ryu gets irritated by the shouting and tells him they've dealt with it already. But Liet still doesn't calm down and says he can't let his daughter go to the battlefield after rescuing her. Once he quiets down, Fleonel tells him they should also consider Lyanna's feelings because she knows that the girl wants to fight alongside her dad. Fleonel adds that Lyanna wants to reconnect with him and make up for the 10 years they lost, and Lyanna nods in agreement. Finally, Liet agrees and says they should pack a big lunch for the journey. Watching them from afar, Ryu comments that Liet seems to handle the battle on a tutorial level and observes that Liet and his daughter don't look alike because Lyanna looks more human. One of the army members named Lana reveals that Lyanna's mother was human. This surprises Ryu even more, as he knows that Lietl is one of the heads of the Inhumans. Another bestial SH Wansaka explains that before the Great War, humans and Inhumans lived together and families like Liet's weren't uncommon. Then he tells Ryu to look at Lyanna's ears and says that she has both human and bestial ears. He explains that skeletal structure and body fur or hair can vary depending on the genus, but the fastest and simplest way to tell the difference between a half bestial and a half human is by looking at their ears. Gyro, who is half dog, explains that during that time, people like them were considered grotesque for having the enemy's blood in them. He says he was persecuted by both humans and Inhumans and had to cut off his ear. He says that Liet earned respect and trust by raising his daughter well, and hearing this, Liet thanks Gyro. Fleonel tells everyone to set everything aside and reminds them that they don't withdraw when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. She asks how they will reach Atralia, as it will be their biggest trial. She lays out the map and explains that the land between them and Atralia is a 400 kilometers wasteland, which is the result of the previous Great War. Everyone looks at her in shock, and Ryu says that marching the army across the wasteland will lead to their destruction. Lana suggests that the Atralia cannon needs to cool down for a few hours after being used, and Liat adds that the short time frame isn't enough for them to get their large military force across the wasteland. Everyone starts giving suggestions, and one person asks if they can use aircraft for speed, as they would not only fly them, but also the aircraft's carrying capacity is low. Then someone else suggests circumventing the mountain range beside Atralia to shield them, but another person responds that it would take too much time. Just then, Fleonel speaks up and says that the stronghold is barely protected from Atralia's cannon fire. She then mentions that her Arcana reflection barrier can stay active for 24 hours, as she has been recasting it every day. However, she assumes that they won't allow an opening to pass. Liat then says in that case, they need to cover 400 kilometers and annex Atralia within 24 hours, which seems like a reasonable demand. They then decide to use the underground tunnel, which surprises Liat because he thought it was wiped out during the last Great War. Fleonel explains that they had faith in her revival and, together with the subterraneans, so they began repairing the tunnel. Hearing this, Gloria reveals that the way is also provisioned, to which Fleonel says that her second forbidden technique can manipulate inanimate objects at her will, and she can see that the tunnel is also upgraded and expanded so they can lay down a railway. They get onto the underground rail, and Liat asks how far the path goes. Gloria tells him they didn't want to risk being exposed, so the rail only takes them partway to Atralia. She says it's her job to push through the rest of the distance. Hearing that, Liat responds nervously, saying if she uses her Arborian Dryad powers, they'll leave it to her. Suddenly, Ryu senses something strange and asks what she's doing all of a sudden. Fleonel quickly cuts in and tells him she'll explain later and warns him not to look or listen. After that, they reach Coldlude underground dock, where they see an amphibious large model landing craft submarine called the Exos. Gloria tells them that Atralia's base also has a front against the sea, so they could potentially land directly at the human's base. Fleonel tells them that they will secretly advance their forces as close as possible to the human base through the underground and sea, then exploit the human weakness. She reveals that she has also arranged for an aircraft to provide backup. She tells everyone that they must agree to defeat and mobilize all their forces to seize victory in the battle. After that, Ryu calls Fleonel and asks to speak with her alone. As they walk to the market, Fleonel wonders what Ryu wants to tell her. They find a place to sit, but Ryu's brain hits a pause, and he is unable to express what he wants to say. Fleonel notices his reluctance and tells him to relax. He tells her that he trusts her plan, but admits it makes him unsure of something and mentions that they've been together 24/7. Hearing this, she says that she takes pride in exhausting herself for it and tells him that the Intelligence Bureau Director of the Human Army, Diedhauser, is a ghastly man. She explains that after the last Great War, when peace between humans and Inhumans crumbled, humans suffered hardship, and Diedhauser's shadow was always present. She sadly says that Atralia is not something that could be built in a few weeks and fears that Diedhauser may have already anticipated the Inhumans striking back while they were just dancing in his hands. She feels sad and believes that she failed to properly prepare the Inhumans. Ryu watches her sadness and gives her his food and tells her to eat first. He reminds her of his promise that as long as they are together, they can defeat any enemy. She looks at him and asks for his forgiveness, but he doesn't understand what she means. Suddenly, she starts vomiting from the food he gave her, and he quickly offers her a drink to soothe her cough. He's shocked that she can't handle spicy food, while she wonders how he can handle such spicy dishes. He explains that in his world, there are many spicy foods. Fleonel then asks about the dishes and alcohol from his world, but he says they are not that different from hers. He points to a lady selling food and tells her that spicy Mexican food is similar to what the lady is cooking. Then he says he is too young to drink alcohol and doesn't know how it tastes. Fleonel tells him that she plans to visit his world after the war, but since the food isn't that different, she's lost her excitement about trying new foods there. Ryu is surprised and asks if she knows how to get to his world. She says Diedhauser knows it, so all they have to do is capture him and have him tell them. Just then, a 10 out of 10 beauty walks up to them and tells Fleonel she has finished what she asked for. Fleonel tells her to come get it, but apologizes to her by calling her Noon. Noon says it's fine and mentions she has a question for Ryu, which confuses him. He wonders why she would have a question for him. She interrupts his thoughts and asks him about something he muttered when he saw Atralia. She asks if he knows something about it. He says he just thought it looked like a weapon from his world, but didn't get to use it. Both ladies ask him if it's an electromagnetic induction weapon, but he replies he's not sure if it's a good reference. He adds that whenever it's fired, they observe an electromagnetic wave, so they may not be wrong. Fleonel tells him that techniques produce more firepower and solid projectiles can't get through barriers. Ryu asks if weapons using solid projectiles are rare. She says that she didn't believe that it fired solid projectiles and explains that one of the few ways to combat a barrier is with the anti-barrier technique. She reveals that the techniques have no durability, so they can't be infused with solid barriers, and there's also no current technology small enough to fit into bullets. Noon adds that it's a whole different case when it comes to a bullet that matches Artralia's massive size. She reveals that even an Arcana can't deflect it, which means there's probably some serious tech built into it. She says that the bullet's huge mass and extreme speed create an impact so intense that it completely defies common sense. Hearing this, Ryu says that they now know what they're up against, so they should prepare another countermeasure. He suggests they build their own railgun, but Noon tells him it's going to be tough. She says that all they can make is the outer shell, and the rest will be done by their Arcana. She knows that they won't have enough firepower and explains that even if they gather all the techniques in Coldblood, they'll only have a range of 100 kilometers, which isn't enough. She says that Artralia's output is abnormal, and even if they assume that its entire foundation is packed with tech that supplies energy for its firepower, it's still probably not enough to fully support that level of output. She says that it might barely be enough if they had a 1,000-man Link tech, but something on that scale is completely unimaginable. And even then, the users definitely wouldn't come out of it unharmed. Hearing this, Fleonel leans her head back and says it's not a viable plan. Ryu suggests that they can fly 100 kilometers, but he knows it's impossible. Fleonel is still thinking of a way out, and her gaze is so intense that Ryu realizes they'll just stick with the first plan. Then suddenly, Fleonel shouts, and Noon worries that maybe their girl's brain has left the town. But Fleonel says she's fine and found a way to get one step ahead of Deedhasser. Meanwhile, in the human world, Amelia and Amelia go to the mock battle training field to prepare for war. There, they are asked to fight 10 creatures, and after a fierce battle, they defeat all the creatures. Monica, an army soldier, is amazed that the two ladies defeat all 10 creatures with their physical strength. The other human fighters lost and felt disappointed and said that their master promised them anything they wanted if they won, but they lost. Just then, Deedhasser walks up to them and shakes their hands. Monica thinks that these girls are personal guards of Deedhasser. She knows nothing about their origins, but they seem like ladies of marriageable age, and she wonders how they got so strong. She notices one of the girls is clinging to the director like a leech and wonders if she likes him. But she knows they're special, and their potential is far superior to that of the Holy Sword Envoy. Deedhasser hands the girls to Monica and suggests they'll be useful, and Monica gratefully accepts them. Just as he's about to leave, Monica calls him back and tells him she heard about the Imperial Coalition's destruction and about the soldiers who were surrendered and slaughtered by the Inhumans. She says they won't hold back in training and will eliminate the Inhumans and avenge their fallen comrades. The girls exchange looks. Amelia asks if what Monica said is a lie their master spread about the war. Amelia tells her to lower her voice and explains that their master spread those lies to plant seeds of hate in the humans, who feel confident after their overwhelming victory in the last war. Monica says that welcoming two strong people like them makes her feel their rank and file soldiers are meaningless. But hearing this, Amelia already raises her spear and gets ready to attack, which shocks Monica. Amelia tells her that with that kind of attitude, she'll only stand in their master's way to eradicate the Inhumans, and decides to end her life right there. Just as she's about to strike, Amelia shouts for her to stop and tells her not to get worked up, to which Amelia calms down and feels ashamed. Amelia walks up to Monica and apologizes for Amelia's behavior and explains that she doesn't like sarcasm. She says that no matter how strong they are, they can't do everything alone, so they'll need the army's help. Everyone becomes happy again, and they leave with their master and promise Monica that they'll be back. After Monica leaves, Amelia suddenly grabs Amelia from behind and scolds her for embarrassing her in front of everyone, especially their master. Amelia quickly apologizes and tells Amelia to avoid causing unnecessary trouble again. Then she turns to Deedhasser and hesitantly suggests that it might be better to go attack the Inhumans directly rather than waiting for them, because there's no guarantee that they'll even come. But Deedhasser calmly explains that it's not a good idea because 400 kilometers of wasteland between them and Coldblood is a huge obstacle for their army. He says that Coldblood is where the Dark Queen, the envoy of the Holy Sword, and the elite Inhuman troops are gathered, and it's smarter to wear them down before Artralia faces them head-on. He adds that they are monitoring every possible movement with tech radar and other types of advanced systems. He knows that Coldblood is completely surrounded by Arcana, and they will detect it immediately if any boat, vehicle, or aircraft leaves. Hearing this, Amelia wonders if Artralia will just destroy the enemy before they can even reach their position, but Deedhasser says their surveillance has a weakness. Suddenly, emergency alarms begin to sound, and a tech radar alert announces that multiple aircraft have launched from Coldblood and are heading toward them. Deedhasser looks at the radar screen and confirms that the Inhumans have finally made their move. He presses a button and a general-purpose human aircraft named Flugel takes off. Meanwhile, the Inhumans are already positioned and are watching Artralia through binoculars. Gloria confirms that Artralia has launched several aircraft and says their plan is working perfectly. She reveals that most of the aircraft sent from Coldblood are actually unmanned decoys meant to draw Artralia's air forces away from the real battlefield. She notes that the humans have no idea that the Inhumans are already close and that Artralia is surrounded. Gloria then explains how they arrived using a massive subterranean fortress she gave birth to through crossbreeding. She did it using an Arborian Dryad ability that allows her to create plant-like lifeforms with traits from the creatures she mates with. This fortress is a result of merging an ant plant with a mole type and an ant-type subterranean species. She proudly reflects on how hard it was to give birth to so many large, healthy organisms and feels proud of herself. However, she thinks it's best to keep this ability hidden from Liana. Then she flirts with Liat, which makes him lose his cool guy aura when he sees that Liana is nearby. But Liana casually says that seeing such things in the internment camp was a regular occurrence, so it's not a big deal. Gyro then cuts in and asks Liat to confirm the operation plan. Liat explains that the submarine squad is also approaching Artralia from the sea, with Fleonel and the envoy of the Holy Sword leading them. They are waiting for the signal to start the operation. Suddenly, someone alerts Liat to look at the top of Artralia, and he raises his binoculars and spots Deedhauser standing at the front lines. At the same time, he sees drones falling from Artralia with some explosive tubes, and he wonders what they're dropping. On the human side, Deedhauser scans the area underwater and identifies enemy submarines near Artralia's secondary batteries numbered 27 to 20. He presses a button, and Artralia fires at the targets and lands a direct hit on the submerged Inhuman submarines. Liat grits his teeth as he realizes their plan has been discovered. He immediately orders all subterranean fortresses to surface. Gloria yells for support to be sent to the submarine squad, but hesitates when she realizes that if they know their plan, then it means their movements have been tracked too. One submarine surfaces, but Liat quickly realizes that it's a trap. He tries to stop the others from surfacing, but it's already too late. The enemy has activated a chain technique that attacks not only the sea but also underground. Liat watches as the attack pierces deep into the ground and then shouts for all troops to deploy their strongest barriers immediately. Deedhauser watches the Inhumans start to panic and calmly analyzes the situation. He knows that there are only a few ways someone could get close to Artralia without being detected by tech radar, so the only real options would be moving underground or underwater. He kept it in mind and came up with a countermeasure because he knew that the enemy's options were limited. He then guesses that the Dark Queen and the envoy of the Holy Sword must be heading toward the seafront if they didn't stay back in Kuldlude. He thinks that he would have preferred to see the Dark Queen's face before finishing her off, but he knows that if he drags things out it would give her a chance to use her arcana. He decides to end it quickly and confirms with Amelia and Amelia that they will check later to make sure she is actually dead. Just then, a sudden response appears on the tech radar. Deedhauser is shocked as he realizes the enemy is already right next to them. He looks around in confusion and sees something approaching from the sky. Just then, many explosions occur around Atriala and shake its surface. Amelia gets shocked when she sees that everything around them is blown away. She turns to Deedhauser and asks what just happened. Then she suspects that an aircraft must have come from Kuldlude. Deedhauser admits that the radar didn't detect anything until the last moment. He stares in disbelief and tries to understand how they suddenly appeared. Then the Dark Queen makes a dramatic entrance in her full form like a grade 2 Marvel hero. 20 minutes earlier, in Kuldlude, Noon observes the setup and comments on how excessive the plan seems because all they need is to just launch someone. Fleonel is standing beside a massive railgun and explains that it functions like a giant cannon. She says that if they fire an aircraft using the railgun, they can fly without activating any technology, which means they won't appear on the enemy's tech radar. She reveals that the railgun only has a range of 100 kilometers, but instead of aiming it upward, they launch the aircraft at an angle toward Artralia. Shermine is skeptical at first and thinks that they wouldn't survive the launch, but Fleonel tells him that the mechanism is built to handle the recoil, but the chair inside did not survive the impact. Fleonel smiles smugly and questions how she's supposed to travel 400 kilometers after being launched. Then she explains that after the initial launch, they will glide the rest of the way toward Artralia. The aircraft has an excellent gliding ratio of over 40, which means it can travel 400 kilometers while only dropping 10 kilometers in altitude. She reveals that she plans to use the full output of the aircraft to crash it directly into the target once they reach the skies above Artralia. Then she turns to Ryu and proudly calls it a clever plan and asks him to praise her. After that, Ryu sits inside the aircraft and looks out at the sky, and he is surprised to see how blue the Earth looks from above. Fleonel hears his remark and grows curious and asks what he means by Earth and the way he said those words. Ryu then explains to her that, in his original world, those are the famous words spoken by the first human who ever went into space. He mentions that in his world, people have sent satellites into orbit and even built a space station. He then turns to Fleonel and asks if this world has anything like space development. He's surprised at how advanced the civilization already seems in other areas. Fleonel replies that space is actually a cursed frontier in this world. She explains that history tells of many attempts made long ago to explore space, but each time they made it past the atmosphere, a mysterious explosion would occur, and the spacecraft would fall back to the ground. Eventually, the people gave up, and a belief started to spread that space itself was cursed. She reveals that it became a legend known as the curse of the second moon, and many began to believe that life on this planet is rejected by the heavens above. Hearing this, Ryu looks at the second moon and feels that something is watching him. Fleonel notices his uneasy expression and says that the danger she speaks of lies far beyond anything they need to worry about right now. She then informs him that they're about to reach their destination and instructs him to prepare the evacuation pod and tells him to activate maximum output. Ryu responds that they are ready to make the humans feel their full power. Fleonel then names their attack the Hammer of the Dark Earth Shaker. She recalls the lesson they were taught about how combining high altitude, high velocity, and heavy mass can create devastating force, and now she intends to return that lesson to their enemies. Seeing the aircraft speeding toward them, Deedhauser's brain goes on loading, and he wonders if it's a hypersonic glider. At the same time, Liet observes the chaos and declares that their counterattack will not stop until the day they reclaim their freedom and honor. Meanwhile, Fleonel and Ryu hold hands and Fleonel asks if it's time for them to begin their mission to take Artralia and claim Deedhauser's head. Will the Inhumans be able to seize the massive stronghold of Atralia? What will be the fate of Deedhauser? Will he fall at the hands of the envoy of the Holy Sword and the Dark Queen? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this. See you in the next one.